Okay, so we, in theory, should be live. I've got the YouTube page open, so just to see. Oh, there we go.
Well, I can see the timer at the top.
There you go. So we'll just we'll kind of give it a minute or so for anyone to join in. But thank you for joining. If you are currently watching this, and yes, we're going to be eating. Well, I'm going to be eating some Jaw cereal. And joining me all the way from the land down under is the Arty Dans.
Oh, yes. I come from the land down under where the women glow and the men chunder.
Do you like that song?
I love that song.
I do. I like it as well.
Absolutely. It's one of those songs that you hear internationally and you start tearing up and go, why isn't this our national anthem?
It's a classic. It is a classic. I do like it. It was the kind of like me and my ex-girlfriends. That's the theme. When I won Bronson, let's go. You're desperate to get into these Jaws cereal. So I'll just tell you a little bit about this Jaws cereal. So I went out randomly shopping the other day, and there's like a discount store that we have here in the UK called B&M, and they had this and Back to the Future cereal, Okay, so if you can see here, it actually has like little mini sharks, baby shark. So yeah, and then we'll try out this like proper Jaws packaging, made in the UK. So I don't know if this is available anywhere else. And so we'll start off with this taste test, and then basically Dan and I will be chatting, and we've got a couple of trailers to look over. And then if anyone wants to ask anything, please feel free. Dan, while I'm just dishing this out, tell the people a little bit about who you are and your channel.
I will do, but my first concern is the fact that you said you bought it from a discount store.
Well,
did you check the best before date?
Yes, they do like there's quite a lot of discount stores in the UK. There's kind of like I don't know what the equivalent is in Australia.
We have a lot of discount grocery stores that are they send to sell all the stuff that those arty-farty hipster stores when they go out of business sell. So you end up full of hemp products and vegan material. Here we go. The pouring in the bowl.
I'm going to spill this all over the computer while I'm doing this. They look like Bombay Mix, if you know what that is.
Let's have a look.
It's the sort of shit you'd find in your pocket after a night out.
Oh, they sound very thin.
I'm not going to have a whole massive load, but there you go. They look like dried maggots. There you go.
Oh, it's a very multicultural box. They're all different colors in there.
Very 2021.
Can you hold up one to the camera?
I don't know how well this will show up. Little.
Oh yeah, it is shark shaped.
Shark shaped. So here we go. The Jaw snack, and this is made by Umpruk, believe it or not, and this is available from B&M in the UK, made in Harrogate.
And Leah will be accepting your check B&M very shortly.
If you want that or the Back to the Future one, please let me know.
So what shape is the Back to the Future cereal? Are they the hoverboards? Marty's hair?
That would have been a thing. They're like just little balls. They're like chocolate. I'm assuming because they're brown. Okay, so let's give it a go.
Seems like a strange reference to the. Oh, here we go. Oh, we're getting the crunch nice and loud, Leo. That's good. So at this point, it should be hitting the back of your throat, or the taste buds there are getting excited. It's for you, it's what, 11:05 at night, where you're probably wanting more of a greasy kebab.
At night.
Yeah.
So it tastes like, cereal.
It could be my favorite review ever. It just tastes like cereal.
Not too sweet. And there appears to be three colours. Okay, I'm assuming a chocolate one, a white one, and a kind of in between one.
And nutritional value would be 0.
They're multi-grain.
Oh,
that means they're good for you. Multi-grain.
Oh.
A little bit salty, weirdly, but I guess they are sea-based, so.
So do you think it'd go better with beer?
This is probably like when you have a night out. What do I fancy? Some Jaws snacks.
Have them with some chips.
Right. So, while I'm eating some breakfast at 11 o'clock at night on the live stream.
Hey, it's breakfast for me.
Tell the folks who you are.
Who I am. I'm a 40-year-old guy in Australia that decided 3 years ago that he wanted to do YouTube. Along with a colleague of mine, we decided to start a separate channel each. I went for something really easy, which was movie reviewing. He went for something difficult, which was comedy, and got nowhere, unfortunately. I, unfortunately, found a little bit of success with a couple of videos that no longer are on my channel, which led me to where I am today. I've ended up picking up a fascination with Asian films. Not really sure why, to be honest, Leo. And then I've started making connections around YouTube with people because I thought, well, I need to branch out a bit because a very insular world sometimes YouTube is. And there's a big world out there. And that's where finally we made contact with yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that, this develops to a special friendship, if you know what I mean.
Special relationship.
Special relationship.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, I have reviewed a few Asian films, especially the kind of the monster movies. They are not my forte.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to get obviously opinions from people, you know, who want to obviously who enjoy that. If any of you guys want to ask any questions about anything, basically anything film related, YouTube related, Jaws serial related, please do.
Jaws serial related.
Just, feel free. But we're going to have a look at a couple of trailers and stuff.
So just before you do that, I'll just let everyone know that I have a very strange niche, which is mainland Chinese horror films. These are the worst of the worst of the worst kind of horror films, and for somehow I've made that my niche. But by extension, that goes to the monster movies, Leo, that you've probably seen lately, like Escape of Shark and Crazy Tsunami. Yeah.
What I found interesting about those films is they more or less tend to be copies of Western films. You know, using the kind of the base storyline of Deep Blue Sea or the Shallows and things like that. So there was like, and I'm watching them and thinking it's just more or less the same story, but just kind of like, because I remember like back in the day, you had the Turkish Star Wars, for example.
I've heard of this.
There was all these things. Now it just seems China seems to be knocking out like their own versions of, and you know, fair enough. I like monster movies. I like especially shark and aquatic horror movies, so I kind of like them. But
so what happens in China, Leo, is because the movie market is so restricted by what they can and can't do. When a popular movie makes it through and it gets cleared by the government, that tends to be a template for the local producers. So a lot of Chinese horror movies are based on this one Korean horror movie that's actually not really that good, but they all follow the same storyline, and hence. I'm guessing most of the monster movies are based on things like, I think it's The Meg.
Yeah.
Yeah, where that was made in China too. So they see the success of The Meg and they just copy it verbatim, essentially.
Nice.
Just keep replacing different animals. Sharks, crocodiles, octopuses.
A lot of them have the very same, if they're not like a direct copy, like I watched a few of the crocodile ones, and it's the same. It's the a group of explorers go to this deserted land, and one's
always drunk, one's a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah, and there's always the kind of like the put upon hero who's kind of like somewhat of a kind of an introvert at least initially, and there's like a girl who's misunderstood and
but always extremely hot and young.
Yes, yes. There's always the arrogant guy who kind of is, lets other people die and stuff.
Yeah, and so that's the rich businessman. If you notice lately in China, there's all that stuff going on where they're trying to kill the whole rich people vibe thing. They're trying to, spread the wealth around, going after rich people. That's propaganda in their movies. The rich people are bad, and that's why they do that in movies. They have to be punished. So, yeah, though you'll notice that person is never a top government official.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Well, I have. As I understand that, because obviously some American movies and British movies get released in China, but they fudge the numbers apparently, and they kind of like. I was watching a report once, and they were saying that they'll sell tickets for a Chinese film, but make them go into the. So they say, someone says I want to go and see Fast and Furious. They'll let them go and see Fast and Furious, but they'll send them a ticket to whatever the local film is.
Yeah, that makes about sense.
They don't have to kind of pay, obviously, Hollywood and stuff like that. But yeah, it sounds a little bit shady to me, and apparently that Hollywood only gets like 25% of the take and stuff. So.
No, I believe that. Absolutely.
But let's have a look at some Japanese stuff, shall we?
Do
if
it.
I can work out
do it.
How to do this. So just bear with me. We are going to watch.
Oh, Boomer, you did it. Oh, look at that monster head.
I wish I'd put the names on these now. These are all coming out from Arrow. All these 4 trailers. And these are all coming out from Arrow this year.
Beautiful. So this one looks like... I think this is 100 Monsters.
Yeah, that is one of them. I think they're all related. Maybe part of the series.
And I also believe this possibly is the third in the series. Nope, this is the first one.
Have you seen this one then?
Oh, I'm looking at the thing on you, TMDB. Look at the monsters. I love practical effects, by the way, Leo. I absolutely love practical effects. Nowadays, that would be ruined with CGI, but back in the late 60s.
I don't know if you know Doctor Who in Australia, but they're kind of the old school Doctor Who villains.
Never was a Doctor Who fan, unfortunately, but it was shown on TV here. Very popular show. There's something with Japanese trailers is they're not interesting. Old Japanese trailers are never good. We've had a question there from Bronson who says it's an older movie. Yeah, this is from 1968, this film, Bronson. Oh, and optical effects too. Oh, they're great.
I mean, Chinese ghost stories have got somewhat of a reputation about being somewhat out there. Obviously, this is the Japanese, but reminds me of Monkey.
Of which one, sorry?
Monkey?
Monkey, yeah. That looks a hell of a lot cooler. Well, I can't wait to watch that.
So what did you think of that one? You were the Asian film expert.
So I've never looked at yokai movies before. I'm slowly getting around to different genres. Yokai is probably the next one. So yokai being just monsters, essentially, or mythical monsters. And this one looks great. As we mentioned, practical effects and those practical monsters. I'm really looking forward to seeing that one. And the poster looks so awesome. It's just a poster full of yokai monsters. And they look so varied, Leo. Yeah,
so what I'll do is I'll tell you the titles that we've got. There's 100 Monsters, which I think was that one.
I believe so, yeah.
We've got Spook Warfare.
Which is the second.
Yokai War, and then Along with Ghosts. So we have those 4.
Ghosts. Yeah, okay.
All right. So let's get rid of this one. And then we'll
so they all have a different cast and director, which is a bit unfortunate. Actually, Along with Ghosts and Spook Warfare has the same director.
You ready for the next one? I don't know which one this is.
Of course, I'm ready.
I play with them as 1, 2, 3, 4, so that's handy.
This one looks like... Oh, look at those optical effects. That's awesome. They do. They do look like serious. I love them. Bro, I'm really spellbound by these trailers. This one's a lot more action-packed than the previous trailer.
It's kind of a comedy.
Well, for us now, it would. For us now, that would be a comedy. For them back then, that wouldn't have been a comedy. So this one says, in feudal Japan, gangsters chase a young girl who might testify against their boss. When the gangsters murder the girl's grandfather on sacred ground, the door is opened for the Yokai Monsters to step in. So that plot sounds actually pretty awesome.
Almost sounds like a precursor to Pokemon or something, doesn't it? Really?
I think so. And I'm with Bronson on this one. They do look awesome. And
Bronson's a big Western fan, so we have a kind of a West versus East, contagion here. So I mean, it's there's so many films obviously come from Asia that probably most people in the West haven't even seen or even heard of. Let's check out the next one, shall we?
Yes, please. And I think you're about to win Bronson over Asian cinema. Again, it's just all those practical effects. It's just cut his sword clean in half. Oh, and that's a pepper. Oh, the pepper's cute. Look at So that
again, if anyone's just joining us, these are coming out from Arrow. These are trailers that I've been sent. Well, I sent the screeners that I think Dan here is probably want to review them for upcoming Arrow releases. So what do you think of that one?
So that one started off very slow and then got action packed towards the middle, and I love that one. So I'll read the synopsis. When a Babylonian vampire comes to old Japan, already this is going to be batshit insane. An army of Japanese demons and ghosts gather to battle him. Of the three, I think this could be the most fun, especially watching that Kappa spit the water out and then having him reflect it back onto him. That looks great. It looked really good.
Yeah. It started off, it reminds me a little bit of I don't know if you've heard of the Blind Dead series. Just the first part of the trailer kind of reminded me of the Blind Dead series, which is a kind of a famous sort of Euro series of horror films. Yep. And then it kind of reminded me more of a Mummy stuff. Started it kind of weird. We had that weird duck one, like Count Duckula. But yeah, this is the Kappa, whatever you said. But see, I'm not all that au fait with the Asian movies, so that's why your expertise is greatly appreciated. But yeah, I think that one looks a little bit more. Apart from that kind of weird creature, maybe a bit more on the horror side, I suppose. But
I think that was definitely more insane than the other two. This one probably looks like it could be the most fun. It seems to have the highest score, the higher user score. Yes, it does. Just. So that one's from 1986. And what I love about when we watch stuff like that is I think back at being a filmmaker back in the late 60s, early 70s, and having only a very small set of tricks in your book that you can use to create effects like this. And we saw some great effects there. The optical effects are great. So there's that scene where the monster's there and then he branches off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, to do that nowadays is dead easy. You just green screen. But to do it back then, you're talking about having to overlay film on top of film on top of film on top of film to get that effect. And then slowly just having it not as exposed over the negative. And it's great. Like, practical filmmaking is great filmmaking.
Absolutely. And they're not skimping out either, are they, with these ones? There's, it's effect after effect after, practical makeup and stuff like that. A lot of filmers now, if they do use practical effects, modern films, quite often they'll kind of hide them to sort of stretch the budget out and stuff, but they just go for it in these ones. Now, this next one, I'm not entirely sure if I've got the right trailer here, so you have to bear with me, because there's multiple films with the same name. This one may or may not be the one that we are going to be reviewing. But
it must be the Great Warfare.
The modern one.
Already, I can see CGI. This looks like it could be the new one. Oh, look at that! He had a chainsaw.
I think it's probably a remake, isn't it?
Oh, I'm not too sure. There's a Kappa in that one. There's a Pan Labyrinth dude. Oh, they've kept the CGI to a bit of a minimum, which is good. I mean, obviously that scene there is... But... It still seems like they've kept a bit of practical stuff.
Yeah.
It's a bit of an Indiana Jones reference too.
Oh, yeah. He's okay. He's fine.
It's just flat.
So there you go.
I've got a feeling that could be the 2005 one. Yeah, that could be the 2005 Yokai movie.
Let me see. I tell you what. Let me get the. I've sent you the links, by the way, of the banner arts for the ones that we're actually going to get reviewing.
Okay, let me have a look.
While
I'm fighting with my computer. Sorry.
This is going to make for an interesting live stream. We're both looking at computers. I'm going to have a look at the email that Arrow sent me to see if I can get more information.
Yeah, they haven't given you much. They've just called it the Great Yokai War.
Do you know, they gave me a lot of information for a lot of the other stuff, but this one, they did not give me a huge amount on. So what is the synopsis say for that one while I'm just having a look?
Well, I'm going to guess it's this one, and that looks like the 2021 film because the kid looks like. Oh no! Wait, now this kid looks the same too. Shit! Now I'm confused. Okay, so the good thing is they're both by Takeshi Miike, so that's good. Great Japanese director. Probably everyone knows who he is. This one says, Ken Watanabe is a 5th grade elementary school student. He has inherited the hunter's blood to hunt yokai. To save the world from being destroyed, Ken challenges a war against the yokai. That seems like a bad move.
Right. What is the one directed by Takashi Miike?
So they're both directed by the same guy, but this is the other one from 2005. A young boy with a troubled home becomes chosen. and stumbles in the middle of a great war of yokai where he meets a group of friendly yokai who become his companions. Actually, I think this is it. Now he must fight to protect his friends and free the world of the yokai from oppression. The yokai originate in Japanese folklore and range from cute and silly to the disturbing. I believe that's the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
That's literally all the information. They just told me the director's name.
Mike. All right.
And they're coming out on Arrow on the 8th.
8th, as in 3 days.
Yes, in 3 days' time.
So for anyone wondering who Mike is, I'm probably, I don't know if your audience is that familiar with Japanese stuff, but Mike is almost a god in Japanese cinema, 142 different movies. Most people will probably know him for Ichi the Killer or 13 Assassins, but he's done a lot of horror stuff as well as, are you a gamer, Leo?
I used to be, not anymore. Not so much. I used to work in the game industry once upon a time, but not. I don't really play them anymore. Not for the last 10 years or so.
Well, do you know the game Yakuza?
Yep.
Yeah. So he directed the movie based on Yakuza,
Right.
which was it's a live action movie of part 2, and it's very faithful. Other than the fact that one of the characters has been changed very slightly, so he has he's a god, essentially a god in Japanese cinema. People love him, and I'm looking forward to seeing these.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, if you obviously I've got set the screeners for them, so if you're happy to do them all, then more, fantastic.
So what?
I'd rather have them reviewed by someone who is familiar and the target audience ultimately.
So I have a question for you. This is something that I saw on your last live stream. I think was with Rich, the other guy. The use of the word screener is very interesting because in Australia we'd say preview, and every time I've gotten one of these, I got the word preview on it, and I only noticed the word screener when I went to Bali and bought a whole bunch of VCDs, and the pirates had pressed screeners onto VCDs, and I'm seeing this word. This is for screener use only, and then the video would go black and white. So in Australia, a preview just has a time coder in the top corner that just annoys you throughout the whole film, but never goes black and white, never has these messages on it. So I'm wondering, is the UK always called them screeners, or is this a word that you've picked up from America?
Well, I get screeners from both. Funny enough, I get sometimes from Australia as well. There's a company called Bounty Films who are Australian who send me screeners. But generally, they all call them screeners. So I think probably it's originated from Hollywood, so it's probably like an Americanism. But so we get, that's kind of what we call them, screeners. So I get sent screeners from different companies. So Arrow have sent me these. And Arrow only I only hear from every so often, to be honest. But they just dump loads on me all at once, just like here's 20. How many do you want? I'm like, oh man, I've only got so many, because the older films for me are some that I try and keep on top of the newer stuff, and if I get time, then I'll look at older films. But to keep on top of the new stuff is, as well as working full time, which is what I do. It's a bit tough sometimes. Bronson 101, I don't know if you're still on the stream, but what did you think of these? I mean, has this convinced you to have a look at some more Asian stuff, or are you kind of thinking it's a little bit weird?
I'm thinking he's getting easily won over with some of these contents. How could you not like a movie that has all of these wacky, crazy monsters in it?
Yeah.
Just doing everyday stuff. Or
do you like anime?
I've only ever really watched one series, and it's a series on Netflix called High Score Girl. That was it, and because it was about arcade gaming. But otherwise, I don't get anime. I don't know why. I just don't get it.
Yeah, when in the UK, probably I would say the mid-90s, there was there was a company called Manga who started importing anime to VHS, and I bought a bunch. I didn't really know what it was. Bronson says it looks very good, so like you're aboard.
Agree with you,
I bought
Bronson.
Oh God, I'm going to butcher
Orotsuko Doji.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. North Star, which is my favourite.
Yeah.
Wicked City, Kira. So there was a bunch of kind of like the big ones, and I didn't know how explicit it was going to be, so we whacked them in, and like Jesus, because I was still living at home back then. It was like still fairly young.
Especially Orotsuko Doji. Whoa. Yeah.
Like it's just tentacle rape after tentacle rape. But I guess they could have cut down for the UK audience. But what struck me with the anime stuff is that it never really made a lot of sense. I couldn't really understand the narrative, if that makes sense. I mean, with some you could, but to me it would just seem like quite confused. Even ones like I could follow it a bit more. Still, I don't really understand. And I'm assuming that some of the stuff I saw was probably cut. The one that was the most coherent was Wicked City. The ones that I saw. But my ex-girlfriend, I used to have an ex-girlfriend who was like crazy about anime, and I went to like loads of anime conventions and stuff. I watched Berserk. There's one called Berserk. She watched, maybe watch, and a bunch of other ones, and so I have seen a lot. But generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of animation, be it Western or Eastern. Because I'm really into Marvel, but I'm struggling to watch this What If thing.
I haven't seen a Marvel movie in a long time.
Marvel is my jam. Marvel, and I used to read all the comic books when I was a kid. So
I better shut up about it then.
I'm a big Marvel. You like. But yeah, though, do you know what? When those films came out, I thought, I'll collect all the Marvel films. Not then, there's going to be about 1 million of them.
So Manga, the label, I believe, was part of Madman. And I assume you had Madman in the UK because we had it here in Australia.
I don't think it was published in the UK, but you could get imports, imported versions.
Because now that I think about it, now that you've mentioned Manga, I remember Initial D back in the very early 2000s. I used to work in a video game arcade, a very big video game arcade, and we imported Initial D, the arcade game. And I remember... Sorry?
A racing one?
It is a racing game, yeah. And I remember getting it in, sitting there, looking at this machine, thinking, there's no chance this thing's ever going to make money. Why the hell did we get this, right? And the kids would just pump money after money after. I remember our first collect on the machine was $2,500 per unit. And so we started getting into the anime. And I watched a couple of episodes of Initial D, and it took 22 minutes for the guy to drive one lap around the track. And I knew straight away that this wasn't for me. It was him sitting there thinking, it was him sitting there talking. It was, he's about to take a corner and he spent 4 minutes analyzing how to take this corner. I'm thinking, dude, you've just done 3 laps. It doesn't take this long. So it's an acquired taste. And unfortunately, I didn't acquire the taste. I do like the Studio Ghibli stuff. Really love their stuff.
I saw Howl's Moving Castle at the cinema, actually.
Well, that would have been an experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was like, I think it's Dragon Ball Z, isn't it? Apparently there's like fights that go on for like episodes. So it's just like one fight.
I've heard of that, yes.
Episodes of still like one fight kind of going on and stuff. I've never watched it, but, it's just kind of like, it's a bit too much of a commitment for me, to be honest.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. And I can't really get into cartoons. I never really combined the characters, if that makes sense.
But what about stuff like, we talk about cartoons. What about things like the Western stuff? Like I love The Simpsons, and I've loved The Simpsons up until about 10 years ago, which I stopped. Things like Bob's Burgers, things like Futurama. I have to love Futurama. I still watch Rick and Morty. What about those kind of animations? Are you into them?
I like Family Guy, but I'm kind of ambivalent on. I tell you my favourite cartoon.
It looks like a Transformers tattoo to me.
It is.
Yeah.
That was the one.
Do you know what's funny? I remember being into Transformers as a kid, but I can't remember a single thing about it. And recently my mother gave me all of these toys from the house. She said, look, to get rid of them, Dan, they're yours now. And I'm going through boxes of toys. I'm like, boxes of Transformers. I'm sitting there thinking, I don't remember who any of these things are. And apparently, Leo, I was a big Batman fan when I was a kid, and I have no recollection of this at all. At all.
I don't remember most about my childhood, to be fair. So the worst screeners are the ones that have your name burnt into them.
Oh God, isn't that true? I watched the screener for Raging Fire, which was completely destroyed by having my partner's name burnt into the video because he got it. And when I say partner, I'm not talking about life partner. I'm talking about Asian film fans partner. Yeah, they are. I agree with you on that one, Adrian. They are some of the worst ones. And the other day, I got a video for hand-rolled cigarette, and that not only had 2 burning watermarks at the top, it had a time coder in the middle as well. So they were really trying to protect that one.
I don't get too many of them, to be honest. The ones I get, I don't tend to have. I mean, occasionally, but the ones I tend to get don't tend to have too many watermarks. Not that I've ever really noticed, to be honest. There's 1 or 2 that will do, but I haven't checked the ones from Arrow, but those ones have got an expiry date, by the way. The ones I've sent you. So, yeah.
Well, I'll get to them. I promise you, I'll get to them.
Yeah. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, they're obviously quite, protective about those ones. Arrow, obviously, I started getting experience from Arrow like years ago. They're still a relatively small company, and then kind of they got bigger, and we kind of got less and less. But with Paul gone, I've not really chased them up so much. But I thought these ones sounded quite good. So
yeah, I've noticed a lot of Arrow stuff's actually appeared on Tubi lately. I know you guys in the UK don't have access to Tubi thanks to some kind of privacy law that hasn't been rectified or sorted out. But a lot of their content is on Tubi, which is good. It's easy to find because they're one of the only content providers that stick their logo on the posters, so you can find them easily. But we don't get Arrow. At least I don't think we get Arrow in Australia. All the stores have been closed for so long, Leo, thanks to COVID. They're
still closed, are they?
Right now in Victoria, where I am, it's all click and collect. So nothing will open up here for another 3 weeks. And then it's probably going to be heavily restricted about what you can do. But yeah, we've been closed for about 5 months again, on top of the 6 months that we had last year.
Because I don't think your cases were too bad, to be honest.
I don't
want to make too much about COVID.
That horrible thing. Yeah. The last couple of days have gone crazy here in Victoria. I think we've had protesters and anti-vaxxers and all those kind of people. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's talk about something better.
Well, Adrian just says, I don't need to get this stuff reviewed. Yeah, exactly. Because in the early days, we used to get all the screenings from them. Then they kind of really started to kind of make a name for themselves. To kind of really, I would say, the first real boutique label. And then, they didn't need them. Exactly. They didn't need us to kind of promote them on my little channel and stuff. Yeah, so I still got the odd one here and there, but they were more from PR companies rather than from Arrow directly, which is how I used to get them.
Yeah.
But we still get like screen bounds, and there's a lot of the Asian ones. That's ones that I said the last time were from screen bounds.
God. Jeez. Oh, Leo.
Yeah, sorry about that. But,
that's fine. The worst part is I did a stream a week or so ago with the Asian movie enthusiast who was really into those films. And I said to him, look, I'm really sorry.
Because you could have that conversation and say, well, I've actually seen them.
Well, the problem is he's very well versed in them, whereas I'm just going to sit there and go, that was shit. That was shit. That was boring as batshit. And he's going to be like, no, Daniel, you're completely misunderstanding the film. I'm like, well, no, I didn't misunderstand it. Something the Japanese try to do a lot, which is what I believe was that whole manga movement that you brought back up in the before, where you said, a lot of the content, a lot of the themes don't quite get. I think a lot of it's based on that economic kind of bust and rise back in the 70s and 80s, that they make a lot of movies and a lot of shows based on that kind of history of their culture. And certainly when you watch things like Ghost in the Shell, about the rapid technological development of how things have gone, the underground culture of Japan, which is it's supposed to be seen but not heard kind of thing. Movies are their outlet. Good movies, good splatter, good horror, good sci-fi movies are their outlet. Like every country makes boring dramas. I'm sure the UK makes plenty of boring drama films.
For it.
Sorry?
Period dramas, we're known for it. That's our thing.
Oh, you are? Yes. What, Downtown Abbey?
Yeah,
Downton Abbey?
Downton Abbey. The Queen, the Crown, even. Yeah, all that stuff.
I see actually Australia has a new movie coming out called, I'm going to say the name wrong, but it's just Martin Backwards. I don't know if you've heard of this.
Martin Backwards?
Yeah, so Nitram, well, however you say Martin Backwards. And it's
really called Martin Backwards.
No. And it's based on the biggest massacre that ever happened in Australia back in the mid-90s, where a guy went to Port Arthur, which is in Tasmania. It's a old penal colony jail. It's now a tourist attraction. He went there and he shot something like 33 people within the space of about an hour and a half. He was complete mental Fruit Loop. And it seems like we've gotten around to making a movie about him, which hopefully follows in the same tradition as stuff like Wolf Creek. I adore the Wolf Creek movies. As an Australian, they are just so awesome. Really, really awesome films. What do you think of the Wolf Creek stuff?
I've never seen them, believe it or not. I'm not a huge slasher fan, so I don't. I know that they are well regarded, and there's a series, isn't there, as well? It's
two of them, yeah, and then a TV show as well. Yep.
Yeah, but I have never actually seen them. I understand that they are somewhat downbeat, shall we say?
Well, the funny thing is the main actor in it is a guy called John Jarratt, which a lot of Australians...
I've seen him in a couple of other films.
Yes, but see, a lot of Australians in the 90s would have known him from a TV show that he did about home improvements. So it was just one of those variety TV shows where, 1 week you'd be talking about gardening, the next week you'd be talking about constructing a cupboard. And all of a sudden, here's John Jarratt cast as Australia's worst slasher serial killer. And it was this great...
good casting, isn't it? That's good casting.
He was awesome because he can put on that Ocker accent. That "G'day, mate. I'm gonna slash you open." CUNT. Yeah, he can do that really well. And there you go. Adrian's agreeing that the Wolf Creek films are great. They really are. Yeah. Some of my favorite.
I'm sure they are. I'm just not massively into slasher. That would count as kind of a slasher to me. So. It's like I haven't seen all the Halloween films. I haven't seen all the Jason films. I haven't seen all the Nightmare on Elm Street films. I've seen I don't even know which ones I've seen. I've seen some, but I'm so about slashers. I mean, they're just the same thing over and over again.
But would you consider Jaws a slasher?
No, Jaws is a creature feature.
It's a creature feature. That's true. Who doesn't? I actually wanted to show you this. This is my puzzle. I bought a puzzle of Jaws. I haven't done it yet.
Nice.
1,000, and it came in a series.
It's really difficult. There's quite a lot of blank space in there, aren't there?
That's what I loved about it. That it's going to be difficult to do. Yeah. This is one of my favorites. This is my favorite movie series, actually. As much as I love Asian films, it's my favorite movie.
Of slashers. No, I don't like slashers, Adrian. I don't not like them. I'm just not fussed with them. Let me put it like that. I won't.
But they are an acquired taste.
I'll probably see the new Halloween, but I'm not really worried about it, to be honest.
Yeah, there is a new Halloween. Halloween Kills. Ooh.
I've heard it's not very good, and I've heard Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't show up until the very, very end.
Oh, thanks, Leo. Well, I wanted to show you a couple more puzzles I had. Chucky. So you're not going to like this one because it's a slasher. There's Chucky. That's kind of cute.
Good picture, though.
Sorry?
Good picture. I like the image.
So do I, but again, with all that white, that space there, it's going to be difficult. This one I'm actually really looking forward to. This is a Nightmare on Elm Street one, and it's got all of the posters for the Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and I think we could class this as a creature feature.
Yep.
How awesome is that?
I've got a challenge for you. You ready for a challenge?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Name me 5 film franchises and you've just got one in your hand, so we'll give you that one. But there's only 2 films.
5 film franchises where there's only 2 films. So Gremlins is one.
Mm-hmm.
5 film. Come on, Adrian, help me out here. 5 film franchises. Can I? Does it have to be Western?
Could be any film.
Well, Shockwave. Does it have to be horror?
No, it could be any. There's a point I'm trying to make here, but so go for it.
Okay. Wolf Creek. That has 2 in the franchise.
Isn't there a new one coming out though?
Holy shit. Okay. Well, right now it's still only 2. I'm just going to cheat and have a look at my movie collection behind me. Come on, something pop out at me. Come on. Now you see me. There's 2 movies in that. Is that counted?
That'll count, yeah.
There's a great movie series in Hong Kong called Shockwave. Shockwave 1 and 2. It's 2 in that series. One more. Sorry?
That's 4, yeah. So one more.
One more. Creed 1 and 2. Boxing. And there's a post
part of the Rocky franchise.
Come on, man. Okay. There's an American movie I've got here, which is mislabeled. Bad Neighbors 1 and 2.
I didn't know there was a second one of that, but there you go. Yeah, okay.
They're comedies. Yeah. Okay. There you go.
So, but they do exist. But the point I was making is there are very few film franchises where there's only 2 films. So chances are, if you're ever going to get a second film, you will get more because there's very few that only have 2 films, and a lot of them probably, a lot of them, like for example, Ghostbusters. There's, you've got the reboot, or there's a new one coming out, and things like that. I've no doubt there'll be another Gremlins movie at some point. So chances are, if you ever get one sequel, this is just a random thing. I've had this conversation before. If you ever get one sequel, you're probably going to get at least one more.
Oh, so that because that destroys my Wolf Creek argument. Bronson's just brought up analyze this and analyze that.
Yeah, they do exist. I'm not saying there isn't any. There are ones that there is only one sequel, but they're very, compared to movies that have 3 in the series or more, there's not that many. And it's mainly because when people sign deals, they do a 3-picture deal. Okay. So that's why. So you'll get people who will sign up for a franchise potentially, and if they make the first one and it's a success, they're signed on for 2 more at a certain rate. And obviously, then you get the actors and the talent at a set price, so to speak. That's why there tends to be very few series where there's only 2.
Can I just say, you mentioned Gremlins, and based on what we saw with those Yokai trailers, that if they did a Gremlins now, they're going to completely ruin it by having CGI. So this is one where I'm going to look directly in the camera and talk to Hollywood. Say, don't touch Gremlins, please.
Well, they did in Star Wars. You look at I know the Star Wars sequels have, not the best reputation, but they tried to have more practical effects in them and not just rely on CGI because of the backlash of CGI. But they did still have CGI, but I think there was an attempt to have, a reasonable amount of practical effects because people, just kick off if there's too much CGI.
Well, Star Wars has, when I look back at the making of Star Wars and some of the stuff from that they did in the late 70s, I'm impressed by glass painting. I think that is one of the greatest effects that you could use in a movie, where you could take a pane of glass and paint it to such a way that you can still allow some light through it and still have film being either reflected behind it. And I think the famous glass painting scene is the one of the council, the Great Council, is one of them. I think that's awesome because the scene artist has left specific holes in the glass painting to allow video to be played behind it to give that scene some life. And Star Wars, I'm not a Star Wars fan. I'm going to throw it out there. I've never gotten into Star Wars, but the practical effects in that film, are very impressive and very much worth watching to learn techniques.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to learn how to hit your head against a door.
Well, do you know what? If you're talking about Star Wars, my view is that George Lucas gets obviously the praise for Star Wars, but I always feel that Star Wars was much more of how it turned out was much more of a collaborative effort. John Dykstra, who did the effects, Ralph McQuarrie, who did the all the kind of the concept art for that. To me, it was, George Lucas gets kind of painted as this person behind the Star Wars, and he, obviously he was a major force in that. But I always think Star Wars was much more of a collaborative effort than people kind of give it credit for. So I was reading like the some of the stuff that Ralph McQuarrie was saying, arguing back about certain points about the way Darth Vader looked, for example, and stuff. So
what an interesting conversation that would have been.
Yeah,
like to know.
It's actually the first film. Obviously, as it got bigger, Lucas pretty much had carte blanche on about what he wanted to do.
Imagine creating a series where you guys, there's a handful of you in a room and you just think, we're just nutting out a little detail about this little sci-fi movie that we're making that 45 years later is going to be the biggest pop culture icon that you could possibly imagine, that it is so synonymous with a lot of things. And to know that you were involved in that very first conversation where it's like, how does he sound? Does he sound heavy? Does he sound mystical? Does he sound spooky? Yeah. Should we make his mask black? Should it be triangles, round shape? I mean, they're the kind of conversations that none of us ever get involved.
Samurai, Vader's look is based on a samurai. And obviously it was Hidden Fortress was regarded as one of the kind of the major influences from, for making the original Star Wars.
That's awesome. By the way, there is a comment from Bronson who agrees with me on Creed. Thank you, Bronson. I think I'm winning him over.
Franchise. It counts. There are films, but I've no doubt they'll make a Creed 3 as well. In fact, I know they are because Stallone's not in it. So even if that's just 2 because they haven't made the 3rd one yet, but there will be.
There is a 3rd Expendables, isn't there?
There is. There may well be a 4th as well.
Oh, that's a shame. What about that other one? There's a movie with Stallone and Batista where they try and break out of prisons.
Escape Plan 2, I think that is.
So there is 2 of them?
There's 3 of them.
Oh, shit. There's 3 of them?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
The first one had Schwarzenegger and Stallone in.
That's
and then
right, yes.
The second 2, Stallone was just like one of his kind of like straight to video jobs where he was in the set for about 2 days, Yeah, Bronson says a 4th Expendables is being shot right now.
So they have part 2. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a 3rd one. The second one isn't very good. The 3rd one's actually a lot better. Well, a lot better. It's a little bit better than the second one.
Well, geez, I'm looking at the cast of this. This is hilarious. So this is a bootleg of the movie, by the way. This is a Chinese pirate bootleg. Can I just read out the back to you?
Go then.
It says that this is in association with Why Not Productions and Wild Bunch, a Wild Bunch and Why Not Productions film. Mel Gibson presents Escape Plan to Hades, starring Erin Moriarty, Diego Michael Parks, and William H. Macy. I'd pay to watch that film. Clearly, the pirate has gotten the wrong cover for the back of this film. I don't know how the hell they did that. Usually these bootlegs are really good. This one is not.
So
what a shame.
101 Bronson says Stallone is in England at the moment shooting Expendables 4. So the question is, who would you like to see in Expendables 4? I'm going to throw out a couple of names. Mark Dacascos, if you know who he is.
Dacascos, yeah, I know who he is, yeah.
And Scott Adkins, Gary Daniels has already been in it, hasn't it? So Michael Dudikoff, if you're talking about your
Michael Dudikoff, oh my God. The guy with the terrible hair. I'm going to add Chris Collins because Chris Collins and Scott Adkins seem to work together. They seem to be very close buddies.
I think Scott Adkins might have already been in it. But yeah, because Gary Daniels was in the first one. Gary Daniels and kind of Mark Dacascos are always my kind of favorite kind of B movie action heroes. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Michael Gove.
I don't know who that is. Who's Michael Gove, Adrian?
He was called Raven in Scotland.
Great. If I was to add some Asian stars to it, I know that we've already had Nan Yu from. She's from the Wolf Warrior movies. And I think we've had Jet Li as well. Yeah. I would love to see Donnie Yen in it. I would love to see probably some more Hong Kong stars. Like Lewis, I don't know if you know who Lewis Koo is, but he's just the guy who's in every Hong Kong movie ever made. I'd just love to see him turn up and tell them all that they're being investigated for corruption and then just walk out. No doubt that operation that Stallone runs is not above board.
It's meant to be. I mean, Jackie Chan would be the one to have in because obviously it's meant to be like all the classic action heroes, isn't it?
But I wouldn't touch Jackie Chan. I wouldn't touch Jackie Chan. No. So him and John Cena made a movie recently, about 3 years ago. That's stuck in what's the kind word to say? Government intervention is the kind word to say. Ever since John Cena called Taiwan a country and had to grovel and apologize profusely for it, and Jackie Chan's just gone full red communist. Don't think this movie will have the appeal that the producers think it will. And the problem is it's a very big budget movie. So it's kind of one of those films that will probably get leaked out in about 2 or 3 years' time and be internet famous, and some distributor in 5 years' time will probably pick up some rights to it and release it as the long lost Jackie Chan John Cena film. But just can't see it ever. It had a name change. I'll type it in the chat for people to look up. It had a name change to this. Snafu. I can't see. Jackie Chan's not that appealing anymore.
Yeah, but he's still got an audience, though, isn't he? That's the thing. He's still a named person, and that's what obviously American audiences will be familiar with that of pretty much any Asian actor, I would say.
I do wonder actually what Americans do think of Jackie Chan. I would be very curious to know what they think because certainly in Hong Kong, his name is Mud. In mainland China, he's not the appeal that he used to be. And in a lot of the martial arts movie circles, the people, the forums, the Facebook groups, Jackie Chan certainly doesn't have that appeal amongst the group anymore. There is that kind of basic appeal probably in the Middle East where they just love the films. They don't actually understand them. They love the action. I remember when we reviewed Vanguard and we posted trailers for Vanguard, a lot of our traffic was coming from places like Turkey, Iran, those guys who just love action, but they don't quite understand the politics behind the movie. So I think he's got an audience, but they seems to have shifted very east towards that, Western Europe, Eastern Asia market. That's probably not box office appeal. Certainly, I wouldn't see Rush Hour 4 happening anytime soon, as much as everyone says it's happening. Or I can't see that happening.
I think Donnie Yen is probably on the rise as the kind of one of the more sort of like recognizable sort of Asian actors in America now. I would say because he's had quite a few. He's been in sort of Star Wars and Marvel films stuff like that.
John Wick 4.
Yeah. Mark Dacascos was in John Wick 3. If you're not familiar with him, but
I can't remember. Wait, who was he in that film?
He was Zero, the kind of guy with the shaved head. He ripped my hair cut off. He was like the main bad guy.
Oh shit!
He was like the main sort of fight boss that John Wick had to fight. He had like a shaved head.
Hold on. So here's the movie.
Yeah.
I actually have this. Look at it, still in the plastic. Oh, I'm going to have to watch it now.
Have you not seen it?
No, I have.
Yeah.
I bought this. It's still in plastic because I bought this from a department store that was closing down, and they were discounting everything. And so I quickly ran to the Blu-ray section, and there was like $2, $5 Blu-rays, and I just grabbed anything that I could. And so John Wick 3 was one of them. This movie's probably only about a couple months old when they discounted it.
Nice.
It's just one of those.
I like the first one best out of the John Wick films, to be honest.
The first one, yeah.
Yeah, I think they had the most story in it.
What's the most original story? Have you watched that stupid Gunpowder Milkshake?
I haven't seen it, but I got Tom, who does reviews, who actually lives in Hong Kong. He watched that one for me, so he's kind of more your neck of the woods. I did ask him to come on the stream, but apparently it's 6 o'clock there. So
yes, it would be. Yeah. What did he think of Gunpowder Milkshake?
I think he quite liked it. Rightly.
I tapped out halfway through.
I think he gave it about 6 out of 10, so kind of just above average.
That's generous.
I haven't seen it. Hang on, let me just see what 101 Bronson's got to say. He's got Martin Cove, and we're talking about Expendables here. Martin Cove from Cobra Kai. He worked with Sly in Rambo 2.
Who's Robert Bronzy?
Clint, Adrian says Clint's 91, but then again, Harrison Ford was in the last Expendables, and he's pretty old, isn't he? So,
has Clint even got his marbles still? At 91, I'm sure he's gone a bit.
Well, he's just got a new film out, hasn't he? So, and then and then Bronson says, "Got to be brutally honest. I respect Jackie Chan as martial arts, but never been a fan of his movies."
Yeah, fair enough. I'm not sure Jackie Chan would call himself a proper martial artist either. I'm a lot of the stuff he does is very much steeped in the opera background. It's very much of a Peking opera style. His stunt work is fantastic. Martial arts is probably just above average. It's his stunt work that I think is the most impressive. Can I throw a name out to you?
Yeah, go for it.
This is an obscure name, and only because 101 Bronson mentioned the word Robert Davey.
Oh, well, I know, yeah. He was one of the Bond villains, wasn't he?
Well, I know him as the Agent Johnson from Die Hard.
Yeah.
Because
he was in the Living Daylights, I want to say. What's the one with or was it License to Kill?
I'm not a big Bond fan.
He's one of the bad guys from the Timothy Dalton ones.
Robert Davey. Spell his name right, Dan. That would help.
License to Kill, yeah.
You know what? I take it back. He was in Expendables 3, so can't have him. He's already been in an Expendables movie. Shit.
Yeah. Who's the guy? He's like David Bradley. He was like another kind of like martial art guy.
Crap, I know that is. Oh, I reckon I've seen a lot of his martial arts movie. Yeah, American Ninja. I knew the name.
That was. I think he was one of the sequels for American Ninja, if I remember rightly.
3, 4, 5, Cyborg Cop.
I like American Samurai. That's my favorite movie of his. Great movie. It's got Martin Cascos in.
Can I throw out? Because you're about my age, I think. Can I throw out a martial arts movie that's probably a favorite? Stars Jean-Claude Van Damme, him going to an underground tournament in Hong Kong that was supposedly based on this wildly fantastical story, which is complete and utter bullshit. Yeah, but I think all of us got sucked in. Yeah,
one of my Kumite, isn't it, or something? It's called.
Sorry, the Kumite.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That is a movie I can watch over and over and over again.
I remember when that came out and people were like, "Oh my god, it's so violent!" You know, it's like I remember all the kind of like in the UK, the press is all like, "Oh my god, it's all fucking," you know, corrupt the youth and all this. There was all of that kind of stuff going on.
Oh, so while I've got a UK audience here, I'm very curious about what is the guy's name? He used to run. Sorry,
Hugh Grant.
No. Hugh Grant. So I've got a different story about that one. But the guy who used to run the classification board for 27 years. What is his name? And he used to butcher all your movies for 20 odd years.
Clive, someone. I think Clive, someone.
There's a YouTube channel called The Cutting Edge that have documented all the British censorship of movies from the early 80s to when this guy retired, probably around 2007. About how the whole video nasties thing, about how you had to change the word ninja to heroes in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You had to get rid of nunchucks and ninja stars in movies. What is the guy's name?
I'm fairly sure it was Clive. I mean,
Clive sounds like a very British name, by the way. Yes, Adrian, I was wondering who High Grant was. What is it, dude's name? If you can find it.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I always find it interesting because I used to watch these documentaries and people think Australians cut a lot of content from films, but then reading what was done to British films was, it must be really hard for a movie lover, especially a horror fan and an action fan, to have gotten a decent selection of movies from that time and know that they were butchered in some way.
Yeah. Yes, I mean it was. I that was 1984 when the Video Narcos Act, I think, and it was kind of searching for pre-cert films back in the day when I used to collect VHS. Was like it was your white whales. But yeah, it was frustrating. But to be fair, back then we didn't really have the internet, so it was kind of, I don't think we really knew as much. Do you know what I mean? Because you got
I know what you mean.
We got information from magazines and stuff, but a lot of the stuff I think went under the radar. And I mean, I used to kind of like cut the VHS and stuff, and there used to be these particular, all these titles that you were kind of like that were released and then kind of burned and stuff because they were literally burned. Do you remember like how the Nazis used to burn books?
Yeah,
we used to burn VHS.
Oh, what a crime! Oh, yeah. Horrible.
James Furman.
James Furman, thank you. Yeah. That's the guy.
No, I got Clive from, but yeah.
I don't know how. If you guys ever saw him walking down the street, surely you would just clock him one. What that guy did to the British film industry or the British film collector market, and the stories I heard was that he would get really involved. Like he would give directors lists of cuts to making movies, as if he was some kind of executive producer that demanded things to be done. And I suppose the British market would have been third, fourth biggest in the world at that time. So you'd probably want to get into it.
Yeah. I remember it never had a small press as it did then, back in those days, because you used to hear about it in the news quite a lot. And then these days, I bet you younger people wouldn't even know what that is. But yeah, back in those days, it used to be in the press quite a lot. And, filmmaker used to be frustrated, there's certain for a long time, certain films, Clockwork Orange, for example, were never actually released in the UK. They just weren't released because the directors didn't want them released because of all the cuts and things, So
and it's funny. By extension, a lot of these films never made it to Australia either because of that. So I remember when Clockwork Orange was released in VHS, probably about 2000, 2001, it was marketed as this complete uncut version that you've never seen before, first time in Australia, that kind of thing. And you'd sit there and think, well, this is just a movie from the 70s with really bad decor and horrible carpet and an awful song about singing in the rain. Of course, back in the 70s or early 80s, that would have been over the top. Now we look at it and go, well, this is just, it's like the Yokai Monsters. This is just silly. It's a comedy. Maybe not a comedy. Maybe not a Clockwork Orange is not a comedy. So,
one of the things I find interesting about, like, if you look at America and Germany, because Germany gets very funny about violence, but America gets very funny about sex.
Yeah.
Obviously, because of YouTube, we're obviously, we're talking about the American system. You put a boob in something and, like, that's it. But Germans are not like, no, I don't give a fuck about that. But back when I used to work in the video game industry, it was a nightmare to release games in Germany because they'd always used to be either not coming out or they have to have stuff changed because of the violence. And that's kind of I mean, I don't know if it's as bad now, but Germany would always, because of kind of the war and stuff. Germany used to have much stricter kind of rules on violence, but they didn't really care about sex. I actually went out to, funny enough, a funny story, little segue here.
Yes, please.
I had a German girlfriend once, and I went out and saw her in Germany, went out there. And first time I'd ever been out there, and she went out with all her friends, and they just got undressed all right in front of me, and me being a Brit, we're like, oh my God, you know. Didn't know where they look. They're just like, don't give a shit. Just kind of get, completely like undressed in front of me and stuff. Yeah, so there you go. They just don't give a shit about sex. So.
I don't know if the same was in. I don't know if it was the same in Britain, but as a kid growing up in the 90s on Australian TV, they used to show a lot of sexy movies late at night on a Saturday. Stuff like Porky's, but then they would get progressively more and more risque movies. And we used to have a lot of those phone advertisements for those, lines that you could call up and talk to girls. And then all of a sudden we got this super conservative politician who came in and took all of that content off TV. And I don't know, did you have the same kind of thing in the UK where you'd have like these late night softcore movies on TV?
It was boobs, that was all you really got. There used to be a series called, do you remember talking about Porky's? Have you ever heard of a series called Lemon Popsicle?
Lemon, yes, I have heard of Lemon Popsicle. Yeah. There's a lot of movies in that series, isn't there?
There was. That's kind of, I think it's an Italian series, if I remember rightly. And that was kind of like the slightly more risque version of Porky's, really. And I remember that was my first experience of watching, and I think a little bit porny. And I was watching thinking, they really like nude and stuff. But it's bordering on proper porn, those ones. But
it's really weird how prudish cultures can become.
It is
over short periods of time.
To me, the whole, I mean, sex is kind of like something that, I don't want to make this a sex podcast, but it's weird how it's such a taboo subject when it's obviously something that we're designed to do, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you can't mention so, but you can have someone shooting someone's head off and it won't be a problem. And that's one thing I don't really understand with the kind of, certainly with the American kind of rating system, that they seem to, when they have an R rating or a PG-13, as they call, you can have pretty hardcore violence, but you can't have anything sexually provocative in there. Oh no, I just don't. It seems weird to me, to be honest. I kind of, if anything, I kind of more agree with the German kind of way of doing it, where I think probably I'd be more, if it were up to me and I had to make a cut, I'd be more tempted to cut
the violence
than kind of like maybe not obviously explicit sex, but it never really makes sense to me. I don't know. Bronson says, me having visited Germany very often, because Bronson's actually from Europe.
Okay.
Sure, are you Dutch? I can't remember now. Lemon Popsicle. I'm getting ahead of myself. Right,
no, that's all right.
So he says, me having visited Germany very often, I can confirm what Leo just said. Yes. There's naked people everywhere. And the Lemon Popsicle is from Israel. I didn't know that. I thought they were Italian.
And it's the guys behind Canon, which is Menahem and Yoram, the Golem and Globus, who then also produced Bloodsport.
Oh, there you go.
So everything comes full circle.
Dutch, yes. So there you go.
Dutch people are cool. I'd love to go. Love to go to Europe. Australia is so far.
What's the kind of restrictions like where you are, Bronson? Jeff. I just call you Jeff.
Jeff.
That's his name. Jeff.
While Jeff's just typing the chat, I'll tell you a quick story. The first time I ever watched the Friday the 13th movies were on late night television here in Australia. And usually when it gets late at night, they don't tend to modify the movies at all. And I remember watching it, and every time someone would die, like the vision would kind of slow down into this weird slow-mo and then cut to the death scene. And I used to think, well, this is just normal part of TV cutting for a movie. All the very like extreme swearing was taken out, but nothing else was removed. And then I remember watching these Friday the 13th movies on video a couple of years later and realizing that that was how the movie was actually presented. Like when the kills happen, they do go slow-mo. And then reading more about it, it was the MPAA in America who asked for these kills to be toned down for the final release. And this conversation we're having about Americans loving violence but not liking sex, and I look at these Friday the 13th movies and think, where was that standard when that movie came out? Why was a horror movie treated differently?
Yeah, I mean, it could be that obviously the blowback from at that time from the UK might have kind of affected the way it was. Difficult to say, really. Jeff, I was wondering what's the restrictions like in regards to kind of cuts of films rather than COVID? Is what I was talking about. Kind of what is the kind of like the restrictions of
keep on topic, Jeff. Come on, keep on topic.
Yeah, so I think I mean it's difficult to say, but I mean they do obviously things change, as we've mentioned. Obviously the guy who was the BBC.
Furman.
Yeah, so it's different now. I think they don't even look at half the films that come out now. They're just like, fine, 18 or 15, whatever. They don't even look at it. There was one film that I reviewed that they couldn't have looked at because it was just like there was one called The Hospital that's from 2013, right? And it was just like rape scene after rape scene after rape scene. And it's not even about that. It's about a haunted hospital. And it got
American film?
No, it's the worst film I've ever reviewed on the channel. Literally the worst film. And it was just like, and it got pulled off sale eventually because there were so many complaints about it. But I was thinking, I don't even look. It's like some low budget horror film that just gone. Can't be bothered to watch that. Just whack it through. But that was relatively. So that was 2013. So it was after his time. But
in the UK,
I think these days they do a lot of the time.
In the UK, does a film need a rating to be sold in the stores?
Yes.
Okay, so it's just like here in Australia. Okay, yeah. There was a comment that someone had made there. Yeah, Ebert and Siskel ranted against violence. Okay, well, I suppose being the biggest critics at the time, they probably got listened to.
I am just going to put the milk back in the fridge. I'm just going to let you take over just a second.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I'll entertain your audience. First time I saw Death Wish 2 was the uncut Dutch DVD. Chucky Bronson, Death Wish. So I don't know if I've actually seen all of the Death Wish movies. They seem to be, I think Adrian's spoken to me a few times about these particular films. Help me out, Adrian, about Death Wish stuff. I know I've seen is it the Bruce Willis remake that came out recently? That didn't seem exceptionally violent to me. That just seemed like a standard revenge film with them. Maybe I'm getting it confused with something else. It's quite possibly I am. Death Wish is epic. I agree. That if I watched the whole series, I would agree. Sorry, that Death Wish would be epic. But at this point, yeah. So, yeah, good point, Adrian. Censorship is pretty dead now that the web has taken over. It's so immaterial. There's still stuff that gets strangely cut over here in Australia. But as I've read recently, Adrian, in regards to this one, it's not cut by the Australian board. It's cut by the filmmaker because they want a lower rating. So the film board incorrectly gets accused of cutting the film when it's not their fault. And actually, I had a funny story. I've tried to apply to work in the classification board, and I've been rejected every time because I am a single. Well, at the time I was a single male, and they only want family people. They want people with families and kids. You guys have them all uncut in Australia too, if I'm not mistaken. Umbrella. Yeah, I reckon that sounds like something Umbrella would have done. And certainly nowadays, I can't see movies like that being released cut. I think we even got Salo eventually here in Australia.
Your cut of Beastmaster is 1 second longer than any other country.
1 second longer.
Yeah.
And it's not a PAL or NTSC issue.
No, you got an extra snippet of Tanya Roberts in the nude.
I'll go Australia. See, sometimes it pays to live here. It doesn't really pay to live here. I mean, I get jealous that you guys in the UK can go to. How long does a trip to Germany take?
A couple of hours.
So the closest country to me is New Zealand, and nobody in their right mind goes to New Zealand voluntarily.
They want some of that Hobbit action.
No. No, New Zealand can keep their cold weather and excessive sheep. Then the closest other countries you get are places like Fiji. I suppose if you live up north, you're close to like Papua New Guinea, Indonesia. But where I am in Melbourne...
You'd be cannibalized if you go there.
Well, true. But where I am in Melbourne, it's 3.5 hours to get to the top part of Australia. So, a trip to Japan is 10 hours. A trip to Hong Kong is 9 hours. And then I sit there and think, but if I lived in Hong Kong, I could be in Japan in 2.5. I could be in Beijing in 1.5 hours. I could be in Dubai in 6.5 hours. I get jealous then when I hear stuff like, imagine living in, say, where Bronson is, and the amount of countries that he would have access to would be so great. Nice. And I believe you don't even need a passport.
Away.
And you don't need a passport. Is that correct, Bronson?
You must do.
Well, I heard something about because you're all Euro, you don't need.
But Germany has got some great. I would like to go to Germany just for a buying visit because they get so many good editions out there. Like back in my younger days, I used to be a big heavy metal fan, and they used to have like loads of like good vinyls and kind of CDs stuff you could only get in Germany, and that's the same with kind of films now.
Have you seen the Chinese monster movie Crocodile Island?
I have.
Yeah, that just got released in Germany on Blu-ray.
Is it?
Of all places.
I saw that actually, yeah. I was tempted. Way.
Bronson says for European countries, no passport is required. But then Adrian, because you're not in the EU, you guys in the UK do need it. No, so Bronson's definitely in the better place. Well, except for Switzerland. What's the deal with Switzerland? Is it just they want to keep the chocolate to themselves?
That's exactly it. Yeah. Swiss chocolate.
That's great. Even here in Australia, we would class Swiss chocolate as really high up on the list.
Yeah,
our chocolate's pretty good.
And watches. Name for chocolate and watches.
Have you ever tried American chocolate?
Yeah, it's not nice. It's very powdery. It's like Hershey's, isn't it?
Yeah, awful. Yeah.
It's
awful stuff.
Powdery.
And they love it.
Well, do you know, I got talking to a filmmaker actually from obviously California, and I sent him a box of English like chocolate and stuff, and I think you get probably most of this because obviously you get a lot of the stuff from the UK, don't you, down there. And they were like, it's so good. Do you know what I will say though, on a complete segue? I much prefer Vegemite than Marmite.
I don't eat Vegemite because it smells horrendous and looks just as bad. It's a very acquired taste.
Crackers.
There's this thing called natto in Japan. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's like it's fermented soybean. And it's their version of exactly that look is exactly it. It's their version of Vegemite. You either love it or you don't. There's no in the middle, like there's no casual eating of this particular thing. And I was in Japan with my very close friend and one of her friends, and she ordered this natto thing, and it came out, and it looks as disgusting as it sounds. It's this pale brown blob on a plate. And she's like, try it. And I'm like, nah, I'm in a foreign country already with food I'm not familiar with. This is not my thing.
I'm quite adventurous with food and stuff. I will try it, but it doesn't mean I say I'll like it. But I'll at least try. I went to a Vietnamese restaurant and it was just like the most watery food I've ever seen. It was just
Oh.
I'll try it. I'll try anything.
Where have you travelled to in Asia, Leo?
Technically speaking, only Turkey.
Yeah, that is classed as Asia, isn't it? There's some strange reason. I would have always thought Far Eastern Europe, but yeah, that does get classed as Asia.
It is. That's the only Asian country I've ever been to, technically speaking. Well, even
So
part of Russia is Asia. Most of it, in fact, 75% of Russia is Asia.
Are you tempted to go anywhere in Asia?
Once I've mentioned I was with a girl who was really into anime, and if we were talking about getting married and we were going to go for a honeymoon in Japan, that was obviously we split up prior to that happening, but so that was the plan at that time. But where I would like to go is actually Romania.
Oh, you want to visit the castles, eh?
I want to go to Castle Dracula.
That does sound like a lot of fun, to be honest. How many of those traditional castles are still around in Romania?
Well, the Dracula has two castles, but there's debate over which one he kind of actually resided in, But but I don't know how many castles are in Romania as a whole. But part of the reason why I'd like to go there is because they're so steeped in superstition and stuff. It's just kind of they believe in werewolves and stuff. And Adrian's been to Castle Dracula. Nice.
In Transylvania. Yeah.
There's actually two castles that are related to the real Dracula. I'm not quite sure the other one is, but they're a distance away from each other.
Castles are such a mystical thing to us Australians because it's just not something that we have here. Our culture being only 225 years since the settlers came here.
I remember the bicentenary. I remember that on TV.
Because the Empire, you would have got that on TV. So castles are not really a thing that the Empire. I'm happy to call it the Empire. I still wish Hong Kong was part of our empire. That's something that I do wish, but that had to happen.
They wish it as well.
Yeah, the poor bastards. Hong Kong is a magical place to go to as a tourist.
For now.
Maybe not now, but I remember telling my wife I want to live there, and she's like, "No, you're a tourist. You like going to visit. You would hate to live there." But don't tell my wife this, but I probably would love to live in Japan. If she's watching this stream now, she's probably going to.
Expensive. That's the problem with Japan, and they're very secular. They don't like foreigners. Having chatted to some people who lived in Japan, it's like it's very hard to ingratiate if you're not Japanese. They kind of like a lot of them don't want to know. So it's tough. I mean, a lot of because I knew someone who went over and taught English, and they were like, they just won't socialize with you a lot of the time.
Yeah, fair enough.
So it's kind of like it's a nice idea, but I think in reality, it's one of those things. It's a bit like that. Yuija, Japan, whatever it's called, kind of like that. She's kind of cut out. But a lot of them, it's very, they're very kind of isolated to a degree from foreigners and stuff.
Can I tell you a weird story? This is actually me in China. It was a couple of instances I've had with some locals in China as a Westerner. The first time I was in Shanghai, there's this absolutely fantastic museum in Shanghai in the Pearl Tower. It takes about 2.5 hours to get through. And it's essentially the entire history of the colony of Shanghai. Goes through all the different wars and all the settlements that were set up. And so I'm going through this part of the museum, and I noticed that there's two girls in front of me. If I was to age them, I'd say they'd probably be 19, 20. And all of a sudden, I'm minding my own business. One of them runs up to me. She puts her arm around me. The other one jumps in front of me and just flashes a camera right in my face. And it must have been the worst photo ever because I'm probably looking like this. And they took the photo, they giggled, and they run off. And my wife was working at the time, and I remember calling my wife going, I don't know what the hell has just happened to me. I've just had these two strange girls run up to me and take a photo. I go, what do I do? She's like, what do you want to do? Like, I don't know. Like, what's the etiquette here? She goes, just let it go. They're probably just doing a prank. So I thought, okay, well, odd prank to do. A couple of years later, then I'm walking down Xi'an. So Xi'an's famous for the terracotta warriors. And I'm walking down the street in Xi'an, and there's a couple of school kids in front of me, and they keep turning around to look at this mysterious white guy. And then all of a sudden, they literally stop us. They turn around and they both stop us. And the girl asks in really good English, "Are you from the US or the UK?" And so I go, "No, I'm from Australia." And they look at each other a bit confused. And then my wife says in Mandarin, where I'm from. They look at me and then they just turn around and walk off. And I'm like, wow. Just wow.
I'll tell you. I've got a similar story. You might know this. There's a phrase for like Western people that are like really into like the Japanese culture.
Otakus.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
So when I worked in the game industry, right, I worked in the game industry for about 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I had quite a lot of staff under me at the time, and there was mostly just British, white British people, and then we're like, I was interviewing for some new staff, and these couple of Asian girls applied, right, and all the lads there were like, oh fucking, like bundling over. Oh man, oh god, you got to hire this. So anyway, I hired them, and but then like I said, well, they're actually Chinese, not Japanese, and they were like, oh, then I'm not bothered. It was so funny.
Did you hire them on their talents, Leo?
Yeah, no, they were fine, but but they were like I didn't. I mean, I knew they were Chinese, but I knew where they were going with it, so I just kind of didn't mention it. But they were like, I hired them, and they're actually Chinese, and they were like, oh, well, it's like they're exactly the same person as you thought they were a minute ago.
Can I ask a question? I don't know whether you talk about this on your streams or on your videos at all. And if you don't want to answer, that's fine. But you said you worked in the gaming industry. Are you allowed to name drop anything that you worked on?
I didn't do anything to do with the actual making of the game. I worked in sales.
Okay, yeah.
So it wasn't really anything like I had anything to do with the actual games. I just worked in sales. Like I was a sales manager. So, it was all to do with kind of like distribution and stuff. Wasn't very exciting, to be brutally honest. But it was, well, I say it was because I did get to go to a few like, trade conventions and things, and you got to meet people. You got all the promo stuff, loads of promo shit, and it was that part of it was fun. But ultimately, the jobs that I've done, I've worked in the game industry, the phone industry, car industry, and I work in storage space now.
Oh, okay.
And it's the most boring product, but it doesn't, because you never really have anything to do with the actual product in my line of work anyway. So it's kind of, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what the product is. But when we work, when I worked in the game industry, it was just kind of like everyone wanted to work there. But people just think you're sitting there playing games all day. You're not.
Well, because I used to work in an arcade. So when we used to have people coming in for offering for a job, and I'd ask them, what do you think we do all day long? And that was the first thing they'd say, oh, you play games all day long. And I'm like, buddy, we spend most of our time cleaning. It's not that exciting. Yeah. But I did get to go to a game expo once. I went to the JAMA show in Japan. And it was actually the first time I went to Japan. I was at university, and my boss called me up and said, Daniel, what are you doing next week? And I'm like, well, working. He goes, oh, I've booked you a ticket for Japan. Do you have a passport? I'm like, well, yeah. He goes, okay, cool. And then hung up on the phone on me. That was it. That was the entire part of the call. And then 5 days later, I'm in Japan in the JAMA Expo, surrounded by the latest arcade games in 2003, which was probably the most disappointing year for arcade games ever. The feature for that year was Outrun 2. That was the most, and I loved it. I thought Outrun 2 was a great game. But that's my only experience with an expo like that, and I didn't get too many giveaways. I was expecting. I
suppose with arcade games that it's not, there's less product and stuff, isn't it? You're asking people to put money in the machine rather than buy something. But I mean, I started working for the game industry on in the Super Nintendo and Mega Drive or Genesis.
Oh, no, Mega Drive, please, Mega Drive. Yep.
That's kind of my era. But I was in there until probably I think the launch of the Xbox 360. I think it's when I left.
Gee, that's a long time.
11 years, yeah. And I mean, I did all sorts of stuff. I did auditing, marketing, loads of stuff. But you know, it's kind of I was never a huge gamer. In all honesty, you know, movies were always my thing. I used to play games, but movies were the thing that I was more interested in. You know, but never actually. Well, I worked for CEX for a while. I don't know if you've heard of CEX.
Yes, we have it in Australia.
Yeah, so I worked for them for a little bit as well, which is kind of to do with games, but films.
Do you get a chance to get stuff before it goes on the shelf?
Yeah.
It's great to be able to just pick and choose all the stuff that gets tracked. Sorry?
Talking about CEX or in the game industry?
No, CX.
Yes,
CX.
yeah, I did, yeah.
Because I had a mate that used to work for a brick and mortar store here in Australia, and they would do game trade-ins, and so they would trade in the game for say $30, and then or $40, and the staff could buy it for the same price they gave the trade into. So my mate would say, "Well, what games do you want me to look out for?" And I'll just get them for staff discounts for you, and built a massive PS3 collection because of that. But no one does that. A store like that doesn't do film trade-ins because I think there's just no value in trading in films.
They do it in the UK. Although when I joined that company, I only worked for them for a couple of years. They were like physical media at that point. I've worked. It's about 7 years ago since I've worked for them, and they said to me at the time, like, physical media has got like 10 years of life left in it, and you can see now because they trade in DVDs for like a penny.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? Is that the cycle of collecting is, if you look at, and I've made a video about this, because people at the moment are getting rid of their DVDs. They're kind of like, DVDs have this perceived value of zero at the moment. So people are getting rid of them, giving them to charity, throwing them away, much like they did with VHS. They kind of got rid of them. And eventually what will happen is that people will then, once there's no DVDs around, people will then start wanting to, and that's when the kind of the value will start to go up. It's like a cycle, happens all the time. It's what happened with comics. So when in the Second World War, for example, people used to read comics and throw them away, and then recycle the paper, and that's why there's the original comics, like this, are so collectible, and like the Star Wars figures, people played them, threw them away, when they got older and moved on to the next thing. So people have this tendency, and because I remember of a few, obviously you collect films behind you, I can see. I'm a member of a few like forums on Facebook, because all they bang on about is 4K. 4K. And I know it's a better format, but the problem is that like the collectability is gonna come from the older formats. A lot of them, and so my advice would be don't ditch off your older formats. Some things are going to be like your bog standard release that you get in the supermarket, but some of like the initial releases of the special editions and stuff, it's worth keeping up with them for some franchises anyway.
Yeah, I'm kicking myself. I got rid of half of my VHS collection, and I feel a bit stupid now getting rid of them. And a lot of them, I don't know if the same was in the UK as it was here in Australia, but the VHSs that you buy from the stores were different to the VHSs you'd get as X-rentals. The boxes were bigger. Yeah. And so I had a lot of the bigger boxed X-rental stuff.
Big boxes, we call them, yeah.
Yeah. And
I used to collect them.
And they're great. But I gave them to charity, as you would say, gave them to the charity box. And someone's probably gone there and picked up all of these awesome X-rentals for nothing and has them sitting in their collection.
The problem with VHS is it does degrade, and I still have a few, but it's not something which is going to keep for a long period of time, and I see people now picking up VHS, and I had a huge collection, and I sold it like 99% of it, but I don't regret it because they were so bulky, they took up so much room, and at the end of the day, it's not like vinyl where you can say, oh, the sound's better with vinyl. The picture is shit with the VHS. You know.
Yeah, let's be honest, it is shit.
You can't compare it to vinyl, which is what a lot of people do. You know, and you know, it degrades. The degrade. I remember I had you put it out. It was an Italian movie called Thor the Conqueror, and it was like a sword and sorcery.
Sounds Italian.
It was like a really old preset, and it came off the tape came off the wheel. It was like shit. So I had to kind of screw it and stuff, and try and kind of put it back on in that. It was just like, you know, these things they're just going to kind of like break. Even if you don't use them, they're just going to degrade. That kind of magnetic tape's not going to design forever. Although the X rentals had a thicker tape than the retail. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't. No.
Yeah, the X rentals. Well, in the UK, I don't know about Australia, but in the UK, the tape was industrial. Industrial strength. The X rental tape was thicker than the retail version, but the rub is they've probably been played more times because of, you know, them being
the rental. So one thing I noticed about rental tapes is that they never had branding on them, but you could, if you looked at the tape and looked at a blank tape of a reputable company like a TDK or a Fuji, you could kind of match up the moldings on the back and think, yeah, this looks like a Fuji tape, or this looks like a TDK or a BASF. Probably they would be the big three when it comes to tapes, I would say.
Memorex is the one I always remember.
We never got Memorex in Australia. We got their CDs, but not their VHSs. DVDs though, they're going to rot.
Eventually, they do degrade, but not on the same not as quickly as magnetic tape. They do degrade them, even like, you know, Blu-ray and 4K will as well, but they'll fade after time. But they have a lot longer lifespan.
So you still collect DVDs then?
I buy some. I don't go, because to be honest with you, I watch most of my films on screeners, to be brutally honest.
Digital, yeah.
So I buy, if I really like something, then I'll buy it. I'll buy like a physical copy of it.
Yeah.
But occasionally I'll buy like something that I just want, fancy, or I can't find, you know. But to be honest with you, a lot of it is room, you know, as well. I just don't have the room to. British homes are not big. We're a small island.
Yes.
We don't have a huge amount of. Funny enough, going back to the game industry, do you remember those? I'll give you an example of why this is a problem. Do you remember those? I forgot what they were called. They were like these camera things that used to sit on the consoles, and they used to do like motion detector and all that.
Oh yes. Oh god, like the Kinect for the 360.
Yeah, they all had them. They didn't work properly in the UK because they were made for like US audiences. But the problem is that Americans have a lot bigger front rooms or living rooms, whatever you want to call them, and you really needed six feet ahead for it to work properly. But because British homes were so small, is that generally speaking they didn't work properly because the British homes were too small. They didn't have enough space, so they didn't work properly in the UK.
Well, I don't think you missed much, to be honest. They're not
shit.
But do you know what? I saw a Kinect reimagined for Japanese arcade game, and it worked surprisingly well on this particular. It was a dance game from Konami. It worked surprisingly well for it. And I see a lot of those cameras in Chinese arcades as well. There's a lot of dancing games in China that use those cameras too. But,
yeah, I mean, they might be slightly upgraded compared to the home ones.
True.
True. Industrial, but like I said, the home ones didn't work so well in the UK. Same with the light guns, you know.
I've got a question for the chat. What do people in the chat collect? Are there any?
Since we're talking about video games, the chat's gone silent.
Yeah, I noticed that. So that's why I wanted to get them back onto topic. What do they collect in regards to the chats? Like, as much as I'd love to say I've got a great collection behind me, from here down, they are unfortunately all bootlegs from China. And, you know, when I go to China, I pick them up for about $3 Australian a disc. So, I've ended up having a massive collection based on that. Although I did want to show you this, Leo.
Deadpool. Deadpool 2, is it? Yeah.
Yes, but that's a bootleg. So that's a 4K bootleg.
Nice.
I actually don't.
I have a few bootlegs, but not loads.
Mm-hmm.
I bought Dragon Slayer, the old Disney film, as a bootleg from Stinky Tuna.
Stinky Tuna? What's that?
Oh, you haven't heard of Stinky Tuna? So
No, I mean I've heard of Stinky Tuna, but not not a website.
So Stinky Tuna is currently probably I would say certainly in America, they're kind of like the main brand of bootleg Blu-rays and stuff. And what they do is they if you want to film on Netflix, for example, or a streaming service, they'll do a good. Let me see if I can. Give me a second.
Yeah, of course. Because I've noticed that the Chinese have been doing that a lot lately. They've been getting Netflix TV shows and Netflix movies and burning them onto Blu-ray discs and making them for sale. I remember seeing stuff like Mulan and the Mortal Kombat movie all of a sudden straight away on China on Blu-ray for the same time it would be released on Netflix. And so, I want to go to the chat. So Stoner Paranormal says DVDs and Blu-rays, and it's getting out of hand. Is it because the price is coming down that you can just buy so many? And Valendrome says Blu-ray movies and anime. So what format are you buying the anime on, Valendrome? Is that on Blu-ray as well? Or are you buying that on whatever format you can find it? Yep, show us, Leo.
So this is the latest. So this is the Dragon Slayer, which you cannot buy on Blu-ray, and it's from a company called Stinky Tuna, and they do a lot of the Ewok films from Star Wars and pretty much any type of one that's on streaming. Like, they're pretty good. I'll open up.
Does it do they put menus on it, or does it just go straight to the film?
Special features and everything.
Oh, you've never opened it. I didn't expect you to open it.
Yeah, it's fine.
So I gather the disc is black then. The disc will be black?
It's a bed on demand disc.
Yeah, so it's a black one.
But they're pretty good. The other interesting thing you have to talk about is grey releases, which very few people seem to know about. Do you know what grey release is?
So grey releases tend to be when a movie is released in one market, and this is what my understanding, released in one market and then imported into another market and most likely relabeled.
But it is not a bootleg.
And it's not a bootleg yet. I'm trying to think of an example here because films over here need those certifications on it. So you've probably not too many here.
I'm going to show you one.
Yes, please. Leo always goes to full screen. He's trying to hide something, everyone. He's just trying to hide where his awesome collection's actually hidden. Clearly, the good stuff is not on camera, and he's hiding that somewhere else. Hot for Mr. Hentai says, hey, what's up? Keep up the great work. Valendrome, for anime, my favorite boutique label called Discotech. Okay. Anime, some DVD favorites. Interesting. It's not like here in Australia, we don't get too much anime. Leo?
Because my arse would be like poking out over there and looking down. So
I was trying not to say that. I was trying to give you some dignity.
So here's a grey release. All right.
True Lies.
True Lies. So this is a Spanish version, and it is the only way you can buy this on Blu-ray, apart from a Blu-ray. And this is not a burn on demand disc.
So it's gold underneath.
That is a standard.
Yeah.
Standard Blu-ray. So that was a Spanish one, and in Spain, it is they are legally allowed to produce and distribute certain films, including True Lies. So that is legally made in Spain. You can buy it on Amazon Spain, and it is a proper produced version, but it is not authorized from 20th Century Fox or Disney or whatever. So it's a grey release.
So what? Hold on. What do you mean it's not authorized by them? So they've still got a license for the film.
So basically, there was. I actually did a whole video on this.
We'll have to
In
watch that.
Spain specifically, they passed a law in I think it's like 2003 or something like that, and it was basically saying it was essentially allowing them Spanish companies to have more freedom in regards to distribution.
Okay.
So companies could produce films like that, produce kind of like editions, and they'd be legal. So they're produced, you know. And there's one example. So that's a bootleg. That is a grey release. So not a bootleg, not illegal, but they're not necessarily like, you know, the official one that the kind of like their production company might want to put out, for example.
So who's the distributor of that True Lies? Who's the
Spanish
label
company,
behind it?
Oh, Jesus. I have to put my glasses on for this one. Can't even read it.
So does it default automatically to a Spanish soundtrack?
I haven't actually watched it, to be honest. But no, it does have it. It's got I believe it's taken from a Laserdisc. But the actual, I've watched reviews on it, although I haven't actually watched it myself. But the reviews have been very, very good in regards to the quality. It's the best looking version you can get. But a lot of them, do you ever have media books? Because a lot of them are grey releases.
Media books, I know of the name, but not of it. I actually
my ass again.
Well, while you're doing that, I actually got the very first Star Wars DVDs, which were those Laserdisc translations onto DVDs as well. They came from Malaysia, but most likely they were done in Hong Kong or China. And I always thought that they were fairly decent transfers, but you know, Laserdisc going onto Blu-ray is probably not that big of an upgrade. Velodrome says, I recently picked up the collector's edition of Robotech. It's been in licensing hell from Harmony Gold. So that's I guess then, Velodrome, that's a grey release as well. And welcome back, Leo.
So these are media books, and these tend to come from Germany or Austria, sometimes France, and
American What is that? Werewolf Cop.
Another Wolf Cop.
Another Wolf Cop, right. Love the cover art, by the way.
Yeah, it's a rip off of the Cobra. But that's properly official artwork. So that is, they come basically with, you know, photos and all this.
Out.
So they're quite good. They're kind of like, they're in like a hard sort of, you know, cardboard. And they're properly limited as well. I don't know how this is.
It's just got a number.
Yeah, so on here.
Oh, yeah.
So that's 444 copies. So 275 out of 444. But they tend to, sometimes they tend to be grey releases. So, for example, this one is no way in official artwork with a tits out. That does not happen in the film.
That's a shame. Fair enough.
So that's kind of like, that's the official artwork. So they have this newly commissioned artwork and stuff.
Right.
They tend to be sort of, sometimes they'll be grey releases.
Got to wonder if there's any money in that. Then there obviously is money, otherwise they wouldn't do it.
These they go for quite collectible. You know, these Jesus, my camera. There you go. So you get
Return of the Living Dead. Well, there's a great series.
So that's newly commissioned artwork.
Is that Mindy on the cover? Is that Mindy Clark?
It's new artwork. Yeah.
I loved her in that. That was how when I fell in love with Mindy Clark.
Yeah, me too. And again, they're all kind of like numbered. But yeah, they tend to be very, very much. They're not really big in America. They tend to be much more of a European, mainly German. If you ever look on Amazon Germany, you'll get them all on there.
Nice, is the book in English or is it in German?
German.
And are the discs pressed or are they the burnt on demand discs?
They're normally let's have a look. They're normally proper pressed discs.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Because they're not bootlegs. You know, so you know, occasionally you might get a bootleg, but you get them in France as well, and there'll be different sizes and stuff. And you know, I've got my whole top shelf for there is media books.
Oh, that is awesome. I might. I'll have to check it out then. I'll check it out. The only problem with buying Asian movies from Germany is that you don't get English subs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you really want to get English because there are a few. Oh, I'll show you one to appreciate. Hang on.
Oh yeah.
Back on.
So Velodrome, what kind of media books releases have you got? And where do you get them from? I also Stoner Paranormal. I got Street Trash Blu-ray like that with a book and bottle booze. Cool. What do you mean by bottle booze? As in, it came with a bottle of alcohol.
Check this one out if you like your Asian stuff.
Greedy, creepy, creepy,
Look at the
dead and
picture.
sexy. Oh, I love that cover.
I'm going to put myself on full screen for a second.
Yeah, and hopefully the stream doesn't get taken down because. Oh, it was look of where all that stuff is actually coming from.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously,
I said it's live action.
It's an Asian movie. Creepy Hide and Seek, it's called.
Creepy Hide and Seek that's from Japan, obviously.
Yeah.
What year is that from?
I
might have to look that up.
This is probably the German name of this film.
Okay. Viper Booze.
I haven't got my glasses.
So while you're doing that, I just want to ask Stoner Paranormal about this because he bought a Blu-ray and it came with a bottle of alcohol. 2013. So what is Viper Booze, Stoner? Is that like a vodka, a whiskey? What kind of booze is that? Do you live in the US? Sorry, Leo, I'm taking over your show.
No,
my apologies. Yeah, Velodrome's from the US, and he's probably got the same problem I'm going to have with importing from Germany. It's the cost is going to be prohibitive. And see, one of the things I've loved when I go to China is they have these DVD stores there, and it's an incredible experience to go to a DVD store, and it's just full of pirated discs. But when VHS or DVD was a massive craze, they would do these extraordinary box sets. And I remember going in and they had MASH, the entire series of MASH on a box set. And it was in this kind of really awesome Hessian box. And it came with I think it came with either a t-shirt or something like that had the red cross on it. But it was a full bootleg. It was not original at all. These kind of media book stuff, unfortunately, I think because like we're saying, that market for physical media is dying off. They would never make copies of that, which is probably good for media books to not have that replicated. But if this was 15 years ago, that stuff would have been copied to hell all over China.
Yeah, I think the way physical media will go will be boutique labels and kind of like special editions for collectors at a premium price.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Warhammer games?
Yes, because we've got a shop close by here that does tournaments. Yeah.
So they have, it's not like a mass market thing, but they have such high profit margins. They can afford to, it still has obviously a lot of fans, but it certainly isn't kind of like mass market like video games or normal toys. But they can afford to have such a, relatively small base compared to, other sort of products and stuff, because the profit margin is so high. They can afford to kind of like still be profitable. In fact, they were one of the most profitable companies over the last couple of years because of the pandemic and stuff.
Oh, good on.
And then I think because I've noticed the trend with Blu-rays and stuff, and it's one of the, again, having come from somewhat of a marketing background, it kind of irritates me. But you'll see people go nuts for slip covers.
Yeah.
And it is just like, that is the cheapest thing to produce, a slip cover. If you want to have a special edition Blu-ray or something, I want to have it
Steelbook,
like weird looking or some type of interesting packaging. Having it kind of a slip cover or a poster inside, that costs like a fraction of a pence to make. And people go nuts for it. It kind of bothers me a little bit.
So is that stuff like this?
That's like a that's that slipcase, isn't it?
Well, when you buy these discs in China, they come like this. They come in these wooden, these cardboard boxes like this, right?
Yeah.
And particular brands have them where they open up and they've got all this information in there. And then the actual disc itself just comes in a. I've actually put it in a case, but they come in just a little sleeve with the disc in it as well.
Yeah.
But yes, this is not. Well, we don't have these in Australia. We don't have this extra cardboard rubbish here. So I always thought that was really odd as well. I never understood slip covers.
They're kind of like big now. People will go nuts around that. And I tell you what the companies do is that they kind of the first run of releases will have slip covers. I mean, I'd rather have a slip cover than without. Don't get me wrong, but
if it's the first one, yeah,
people will pay to have the slip cover. I mean, if you look at eBay,
that's
there'll
insane.
be certain things that with slip cover, and it'll be like £50 or $50 or whatever, just because it's got the slip cover with it.
Oh, that's insane.
People buy these newer editions, and it's the marketing because the companies know that people will go nuts because they want the slip cover more than the film. To be brutally honest, they just want that special version of it. And it cost them nothing to make. This is not even like cheap B movies. You'll see that coming out in the supermarket will have slip covers because people just go, "Ooh, slip cover! I've got to buy it." That costs like nothing to make. And it's kind of having worked in a marketing background for a little while, it's kind of like, oh my God, it's obviously being marketed to, but I don't think people realise. It's just marketing.
It's like the movie equivalent of making a figurine and then releasing it in 12 colors.
Yeah.
So that everyone buys every color.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, I'm not saying people should get it for that. If they want to get it, that's fine. But, it's kind of like, I like it. I remember there was like, you mentioned Friday the 13th. I think it was Shout Factory did like a box set and it had all the Friday the 13th films in it in like a cardboard box set. And it's just like, that's just cheap. It's just like in a cardboard box. And just like, to me, that's not special. If I'm buying a box set for, £100 plus, I want it to have something,
I'd want a mask with it.
A bit of design on it, a bit of kind of work them in, not just like a box. It kind of irritates me when they kind of companies are a bit lazy. But they don't want to do it because it costs them money.
So question for you. You said that you can buy a box set of Friday the 13th movies. So here in Australia, all the Friday the 13th movies are held by different companies. So Warner holds, for example, 1 and 10, I think, and 9 as well, Warner and Roadshow. But 2 to 8 are held by Paramount. So we will never get an Australian box set of Friday the 13th with all the films because the distribution is held over so many different companies. Yeah. And Warner and Paramount are not going to work together. Should say Roadshow and Paramount.
Release, what I'm talking about.
That was an American one. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't think it had one film in it, if I remember right. Again, I'm not a slasher fan, so it's not something that I bought. But I think it might not have had like the remake or something in there. But
yeah, that probably makes sense because it's the newer licensed one. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, generally it's got pretty much all, and they do have Halloween and stuff as well. Yeah. Let's just have a quick look at the comments there.
Yeah.
US right, I don't know how far you got to reading these.
I'm reading the one from Velodrome that says in the US they have C to B label called Vinegar Syndrome, and the library of movies are absolute shit. But they put out beautiful slip covers that sell out like crazy. There you go.
Yeah.
That's an anecdotal story right there that matches what you said. So,
and people buy them because and that's not. This is some great marketing from that company. Because I see people doing their pickup videos, and I've never heard of this film, but I bought it for £50. And with importing them from the States, it's not cheap. I've got a couple of Vinegar Syndrome releases, but I bought the films that I want to get.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
They've just announced Ticks. I don't know if there's familiar with that film. I'm tempted to do that one, but Seth Green's in it, and it's kind of like but they do. People just buy them because, and it's quite funny because I see these collection videos, and I spent 30-40 pounds on this thing and go, it's not very good. But I only bought it because it was like the latest one from Vinegar Syndrome. Just like, Jesus.
See, now I could take a risk.
Are you a collector or are you a fan, a movie fan? I've had this conversation many times with YouTube. It's like movie collectors rather than movie fans. That makes sense.
I could take a risk on a movie that's a couple of dollars. I don't think I could take a risk on a movie that's $40 or $50. Like that just seems like, you wouldn't even go to the cinema for that price. Why would I pay that much for a physical copy? So yeah. Anyway, Leo. Yeah, sorry.
No, they are. I mean, they're wonderfully produced. I mean, they look great. They kind of have a nice thick cardboard sleeve and things like this. I've got a Beastmaster edition of it, but I love the movie. That's kind of why I got that version. And but it's just kind of like and they've really, I can't fault the company because they have absolutely. And they started as a porn company, by the way, Vinegar Syndrome. A little anecdote for you, but yeah, it's they make these releases and they sell out. They put them on the website, they sell out.
Well, Leah, I'm going to have to say that it's now hit 11 o'clock and I have to actually start work very shortly. I have to log into my work computer. And yeah, you might want to go to bed. I have had an absolute ball on this chat today. Plus, your chat has been very lively and there's been some great people there to chat to. So I really want to say thank you for inviting me on the show. And the fact that we did it very last minute. We only texted yesterday and all of a sudden, bang, organized.
Yeah.
I want to see how I can.
You have seen some. You've got the taste of Jaws cereal now, and obviously some yokai movies.
God, I almost forgot about Jaws cereal. Now it feels like it's that long ago.
2 hours ago.
Yeah. Are you hungry? Do you want more?
No. Maybe tomorrow.
All right,
my actual breakfast for tomorrow.
Well, I probably am going to need to sign off soon. So I don't know. Are you going to keep going or are you going to?
No. I'll go to bed. We'll knock it on the head then. Unless anyone has any last burning questions they want to ask, we'll kind of we'll call it a night, I guess. But or a morning for you, I suppose. But,
just getting started.
I was trying to get you in the last one we did, and it was just like trying to get like people from America and Australia at the same time. It's nigh on impossible.
It is. We are not a friendly time zone here in Australia, but let me know what you I'd love to do it again, Stoner. So let me know what you've got planned for next time, and I'll just try and make it. Absolutely, whatever time of the day it is, I'll try and make it.
And obviously, anyone who's subscribed to me, make sure you go and subscribe to Mr. Arty Dans there. I've left a link to his channel in the description box.
Thanks, Leo.
So go and give him a sub and stuff.
Thanks, guys.
All right. So anyway, then
all right,
we shall leave it there and have a good morning or evening or wherever it is the time you're there. I'm going to bed. He's going to work. All right.
Adios, everyone.
See you later. Bye for now.
Thank you.